breaking news. The BBC covered up the deceitful tactics that journalist Martin Bashir used to secure his famous interview with Princess Diana, according to a new inquiry. A report about how the interview was secured has now been published. Lord Dyson, the retired judge who led the inquiry, said the BBC fell short of the high standards of integrity and transparency which are its hallmark. The BBC said the report showed clear failings, and we are very, very sorry for this. The report found that Mr. Bashir deceived Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, by showing him fake documents to gain his trust so he would introduce Mr. Bashir to Diana. The report said Mr. Bashir had lied when he told BBC managers he had not shown the fake documents to anyone, and described significant parts of Mr. Bashir's account of the events of 1995 as incredible, unreliable, and in some cases dishonest. Damning words indeed. Let's get reaction now from the former BBC royal correspondent, Michael Cole. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mark. This is a very, very black day for the BBC. Probably the worst in the 99 years that it's been broadcasting to the world and to this country in peace and in times of war. There'll be a lot of good people at the BBC who will be absolutely mortified by this report, 127 pages of condemnation. And Tim Davie, the present Director General, who wasn't obviously in charge at the time, has offered a full and unqualified apology, which in the circumstances is the very least that he can do.
What does this report tell us about the culture of the BBC at the time, Michael?
It certainly tells us something was going on in one corner of the BBC, Panorama, which was part of current affairs. And what happened there is that one reporter, fairly unknown, fairly junior, Martin Bashir, who I know reasonably well, managed to pull off the, quotes, interview of the century. But now we know, because of digging by reporters in the press and elsewhere, that part of this coup that he achieved was achieved by, first of all, getting the confidence of the princess's brother, Earl Spencer, Charles Spencer, by showing him faked bank statements purporting to show that one of Lord Spencer's staff was selling him out to the newspapers for money. And on the basis of establishing this trust with Lord Spencer and telling a litany of other lies and misrepresentations, he was able to get to meet Princess Diana, and she was in a mood to speak to him. She spoke to him, and the interview, which was broadcast in November 1995, shook the royal family to its very foundations. We'll all remember the stuff about, well, there were three of us in our marriage, and there was stuff about James Hewitt and buying him Gucci shoes and all the rest of it. But the moment when the hair stood up on the back of my neck was when I heard her say that she did not think that her husband, as he was at the time, Prince Charles, was up to being king. And she suggested that he wasn't even prepared to be king, or wasn't capable of being king. Well, when I heard that, Mark, I heard the sort of executioner's axis being sharpened, because in an earlier age that would have been regarded as treason. So now we know that underhand tactics were used, and they were used by the BBC. Lord Grade, who was a very big wheel at one time in the BBC and in ITV, said on one occasion that the BBC was there to keep the rest of us straight. What he meant was that it was the gold standard of integrity, accuracy, honesty. And that was true. I served there for 20 years, and the people who worked there then believed in public service broadcasting, and they were not up to the skullduggery and the dirty tricks that went on in the old Fleet Street at that time. So this is a day of shame for the BBC, and I think it's one to be regretted by those who are its fans and those who are its foes.
Clearly, that interview was very damaging to the royal family, Michael. Did it damage Diana as well?
I think it certainly affected the rest of her life, because once that interview had been transmitted, I mean, Prince Charles got married because his father told him to get married, and he got divorced because his mother told him to get divorced. And after it had been transmitted, at the time they were separated, but they might have just managed to go on together in some sort of way and maybe mended a few fences after the years. But after that interview was broadcast, there was a complete severance. There was the divorce. The title honorific of Her Royal Highness was taken away from her, and she set out on a new path. As we know, she dismissed her bodyguards because she felt that they were reporting back to her husband on her movements. I know from my own certain knowledge that she believed her phones were bugged. She believed that her detectives were reporting on her movements, and she believed that her life was in danger. And the representations that Bashir made to her obviously played on those fears and enabled him, as I say, a fairly unknown reporter, a junior role, who I don't believe was even on the BBC staff at the time, he was a freelance, to pull off that interview, which was broadcast in full, apart from a minor cut when she made some comments about the Queen Mother. The BBC omitted that, but the rest of it was put on the air after careful consideration by Lord Hall, who later became the Director General of the BBC, but at the time was the head of news and current affairs.
Do you think that the forging of these documents are what got the interview across the line?
Well, they certainly were used to that end. There is allegedly a letter, which I haven't seen, where the princess wrote in her own handwriting, apparently to Mr. Bashir's dictation, that she hadn't decided to do the interview on the basis of these documents, these forged bank documents. But there were also other stories which he told her about the Queen, about her son's nanny, about Prince Edward, about the Queen being on the verge of abdication, which of course anybody who knows anything about the royal family knows that that will never happen. But there were other aspects of this too, Mark, and I think they're very important. Matt Wiesler, who is a completely innocent South African, rather good graphics designer who'd worked for the BBC for some time, he made these forged documents at the specific instruction of Martin Bashir. But as a result of doing that, completely innocently, he was blacklisted from further work from the BBC, although he didn't know that. It was all done behind the scenes. And he had to leave the industry and went down to Devon and earned his living somewhere else. And also, there were reporters within the Panorama office, very experienced, seasoned reporters, who felt there was something wrong with this and tried to bring this to the management's attention. They were told by Steve Hewlett, who was the editor of the program at the time, now dead, they were told in no uncertain terms to go away. And in the BBC's inner councils, it was decided that they would be weeded out, that they would be regarded as troublemakers and somehow got rid of. Well, this is mafia type stuff. We're going to get rid of this people. We're going to blacklist that person. This is the BBC. You know, I was proud to work for the BBC. The people I worked with were honest journalists like you from the Belfast Telegraph, the Western Mail, Manchester Evening News. They'd have cut off their left arm rather than put out a false story or one that depended upon false documents and chicanery.
Michael, might there be lasting damage to the reputation of the BBC?
I think there will be, because I can't see that this will escape parliamentary scrutiny. The Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee, Select Committee, a powerful bunch of people, I would have thought that the chairman of that committee would be making steps now to call these various people for interrogation, because how deep did this go at that time? Are they sure that this sort of thing isn't still going on? It was against the producer guidelines, which were well in existence at the time. Never has there been a moment when it's been more important for the whole nation to be able to depend upon the integrity and accuracy and truth of the BBC. And I do believe that this actually is one of the most serious moments, if not the most serious moment in its history. In 1926, in the general strike, Winston Churchill tried to take over the infant BBC and you make it a government mouthpiece. Well, he failed in that. The Hutton report into the death, or the circumstances leading up to the death of the weapons inspector, to David Kelly, that resulted immediately in the resignation of the chairman, Gavin Davis, and the Director General, Greg Dyke. Immediately they went. And I think that this is more serious than that, because there is not just the offence, the miscalculation, the misjudgment, the misrepresentations, but there is the cover-up. And that's very clearly delineated in Lord Dyson's report.
Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Michael Cole is a former BBC Royal correspondent and spokesman for Mohammed Al Fayed.